live. I'm just sharing to people. Sharing. I think I've shared to you, Susanna.
Thank you.
I think I did. We are live. So good morning. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Nice to see you.
Morning, everyone.
And we've got a new face. We've got Lena today as well. So it's so nice to see you, Lena.
Nice
And
to be here.
before we just came on live, we were all having a chat, and oh gosh, we were just talking about people's backgrounds, and it's been so interesting, like Romania and Bulgaria backgrounds, and now Susanna's in France, and your background was in Romania.
Romania and then Canada, yeah.
Amazing. Oh, wow. Multi-travelled, and Lena her background was Bulgaria, and now you're South Africa.
Yes, I'm in South Africa.
And I know Kate's England, and then France. Yeah. And then Marie, you're
multiple background as well. France to start with, South Africa, Russia as well for quite a few years. Multiple background too.
so amazing. I just am fascinated with people, and I'm fascinated with you all. Oh my gosh, I love it. And we're going to do another talk at some point. We'll do it about just backgrounds and what we're used to, and just what's normal with life and stuff like that. So this is inspiring me. So today we are doing a talk together on, this is so important to me. It's about loss, death, grief. So we're going through, obviously, the most incredibly challenging times at the moment. And I, for one, know people around me that have lost loved ones, you know, close to them. And thank the universe a million times, we're still safe, and my family is still safe, and I'm so grateful for that, and please let that last forever. But realistically, there are so many people that are just dealing with such pain and angst and emotions that are just being thrown at them right now, and loss, absolute loss, which can be completely devastating. Obviously, we are here to try and shed different angles on how to look and deal with those problems that we're going through. So on a personal level, I'm going to just talk about something that happened to me, which I was so grateful to NLP for. I'm just going to shut my door a little bit, I'm just going to push it shut. So when I just first learnt to be a master NLP practitioner a couple of years ago now, I learned it because I wanted to try and help my family and friends through times that I was a healer anyway, but I never knew how to really help people without draining myself of energy. And I didn't have tools and techniques. And once I had NLP, I had this whole series of tools and techniques that can really help. And I was amazingly grateful. And something happened straight away which tested it. So I just finished my Master NLP Practitioner course, and I came back home, and my son's grandpa, not mine, thank the universe, but my son's, my ex-partner's dad, unfortunately had passed away. And it hit my son extremely badly. And so for the first night or so, he was having nightmares and terrors and stuff, and rolling around in bed, and it was very hard to deal with. That was like for the first 2 nights, and I was trying to just put him in Ethan's world. I call it Ethan's world, and it's like a hypnosis to get him to sleep and to go into Ethan's lovely place and happy place to, you know, where he's safe. But the third night, he was lying in bed, and he sat up in bed, and he was just crying, and he looked at me, and he was going, I can't sleep. And I'm like, okay. So I said, what is it? And he goes, he goes, it's granddad. And I went, what are you seeing? And he described an image that he had plastered in his brain so clearly. And it was an image that was obviously associated with the very last few weeks of death, you know, in a lot of pain, hooked up to things, just a lot of horrible things that he was visualizing for a 10-year-old child. Now, this had just finished my Master Prac course, so I thought, this is where it comes into play. So what we did, so NLP, which is so beautiful, uses a thing called submodalities. And what submodalities do is you can visualize a picture that you're looking at, whoever it may be, we can maybe talk about this in a bit later. We can maybe even go through an exercise. I'd like to do that. And what it can do is it can change the picture that you're looking at, drain the colour out of it. It can literally turn down the noises. And you're in charge. Your brain can do everything. Turn down the noises, shrink it, put it further away from you, and do what you need to do with that image and just disappear. You can just throw it away if that's what you want. Morning, Marcus, darling, morning.
Hey,
so that's what I did with Ethan, and we sat there while he was crying in his bed, and I asked him to picture this picture, and he didn't want to picture it, but he did it, right? And then I said, can you now picture a picture of when you remembered Grandad to be happy? And he goes, I can't remember. I said, hold on, just calm down. I said, calm it all down. And I said, you will know a picture. It will just come to you when he was happy. And he goes, oh, okay, yeah, he remembered. I asked him where it was, because your brain wires it to certain places, so you can see an image there, or you can see an image there, or down there, anywhere it may be. And he said, oh, I can see it. And he pointed to where it was. I said, okay. And I said, what? And he described it. He was laughing and he was playing and he was happy. I was like, brilliant. Okay, so what we did is we went back to the old image, and obviously the whole tonality just changed again. And we turned down all the colours. We made it smaller. It took some time, and then we pulled it right to the back of the room because it was really quiet in his face. And I said, what do you want to do with it? He goes, disappear. I said, all right. So we threw it away. And I said, how does that feel? He goes, better. Then I went to the other image and I moved it into the place where the old image was, and we made it even brighter with really beautiful colours, and all the laughing was turned up really big, and we made it huge, and it was just there. And he just looked at me and he goes, how did you do that, Mummy? He said, how did you do that, Mummy? I said, you did that. He went, thank you. And he went straight to sleep, right? Within 10 minutes, just rewired. Magic. And he slept like a baby all that night. The next morning, as a test, we were at my mum and dad's house. We were sitting at the kitchen table, and I explained to my mum and dad what we'd done. And I said, Ethan, what does Grandad look like? And he goes, he's laughing straight away. And I went, yes. And that was it. So that, to me, was just beautiful. That is NLP in action. And that is the power that we have, that we can do ourselves with our own minds. And it gets me very excited, I'm sorry. But that's what it is. So that was my use case of NLP in my life, how it works. So I'd like to throw it out to someone. I know, Marie, maybe, can we start with you? Because I know that you've been through some tough times, and I'd love to see you explain and how you've coped and got through everything. So.
Right, yeah, I will. I mean, I'll jump back on what you mentioned on the technique, NLP technique, because that totally resonates with me, and I'll jump back to that a little bit later because I've used some of them on myself. And indeed, it does change the complete perception of what image is in your mind or stuck in your mind, and helps you to take off all the negative emotion associated to that. But as you say, yes, 2 years ago, I lost my husband of cancer. You know, as I would say, a lot of people are in that situation, but when you face that at a very young age as well, this is never what you expect in life. And living overseas, you know, none of us being into our own countries, somehow added, in terms of perception, to the complication. It was the loss of my husband, not being surrounded, or being in an environment where you would normally, you know, would like to be with parents next to you, etc. So that was something quite traumatic, I would say. But it's few things that I feel like saying. I mean, if I just talk from my mind, I don't think we're all equal, obviously, to manage emotions like that. Some of them will move into flying or attack or withdrawn, or finding that the world is unfair or whatever. I was fortunate in the sense that my first reaction when I lost my husband was to say I was so grateful for the years I had with him. not knowing that it was actually already a mindset probably to think that. And whenever, obviously, you're full of emotion, etc. Dealing with it, I was thinking, you know what, yes, you're devastated, yes, you're crying, but what does that mean that it was so beautiful that you feel like you need to cry about it? If it was ugly story, you would have never cried about it. So let's try to, this emotion, I was constantly, but it was on a survival mechanism for me to shift the pain and always transcend and turn the pain into something different that would give me comfort. That's the first thing I was trying to do. Convincing myself that, for example, that, oh, sorry about that, I don't know what that phone is all about.
Don't worry.
Probably, I'm not sure, that should have never been there. But that was one thing that was, yes, constantly doing, you know, and that refers a lot to NLP, was to convince and turn every negative emotion into something positive. And that was intuitively. But the pain and the discomfort also actually pushed me to become who I am now, and to search for further tools, as you say, to help myself, to help my kids, to really try to say there cannot be a double pain. You have to bounce from that. It has to be something positive in your life, regardless of what it is, because that would definitely be for me a double pain. It came with also a bit of deny to start with, and I welcome it and actually even voiced it. My point was also, when I was in denial, to maybe acknowledge it, just for the fact that it was making me comfortable to be in denial, but actually that was okay. Maybe I needed to go through that. And I remember as well posting sometimes some message on Facebook, just saying, you know, actually, to deal with the pain, I'm just pretending in a business trip. And it's a flipping long one. But you'll be back. And you know, it was many different techniques that one tried to put in, but that's also, I can't say that if I have to go on a spiritual level, which I'm connected with as well, I had to find a further meaning, and they had to be not a right order, but they had to be something that I had to grow out of that tremendous pain. And that pushed me HUL and NLP and a lot of more questioning as well, because I needed the tools, but not just the tools to deal at the neurology level, but I needed to understand how can I enhance and make better what I think I was already intuitively a lot putting into place and into practice. And it really started as well with trying to help people around me to deal with it, and again, you know, be able to go through that better. The one technique, and now I'm going to bounce on what you were saying with regards to image that we've got into our mind, especially, you know, on a disease such as cancer. The last few weeks, I would say, and days, is definitely an image you do not want to keep into your mind, and yet it's stuck for a while. And again, playing exactly with what you described, trying to remember those images that randomly jump into your mind, or those words. I said, okay, I have somehow to apply that technique and see if that works, how that works. And the magic and the immediate relief that you get from it, it's exactly what your son describes. All of a sudden, you're going to just shift that image of something different on this image you don't want to have into your mind, and you cover it up and you let it go until such a time you can no longer see this image that was at the back. And it gives you discomfort. I get the goose just by telling you. It gives you discomfort that almost you can't even see the image in your mind, and you think, have I just done magic on myself? What have I just done? Because you do it, but it's the first time, and until you experience, you think, maybe it's a little bit, really, to that point, am I really going to erase that kind of picture from my mind? And yes, it is. And I said, okay, let me try to remember that picture. okay, my mental is trying to remember, but my emotion do no longer remember those pictures. They're gone. And that's the power of NLP. And the same with noises. I've got some voices. Can I put some, what if I change that sound? Can I make a little bit of something that really, and I don't hear it? And let me zoom up into whatever, I thought the noise was outside. What if they were eating with popcorn? He was having popcorn in his mouth. Actually, that was just popcorn. And then I'm hearing that very same words and noise that are so disruptive and stop you from just trying to go forward. And I'll go on that concept before I end the talk to somebody else. But it stops you from moving forward. What if I can stop that sound that comes into my mind and bugs me? I'm busy working on progressing and doing this, and that sounds come back. And that's magic. All of a sudden, you distort the sound because the mouth is full. Actually, everybody tells you do not speak with a mouth full, but it is sometimes quite useful to imagine this. And then so much sweets of popcorn that I can't understand what you're saying anyway. And that noise goes. And there's some of those techniques that we can put into place, whether it's for something mega serious or whether it's something maybe a comment that a child, I'm saying a child, but it can be anyone, or a colleague did to us at work, and you got so frustrated, and we have to get that comment is coming and coming and coming. Let's change that comment. Because, okay, we can no longer control the effect it's got on us. Let's control how we perceive that comment. And I think it's very powerful, whether for very serious aspects such as loss or maybe not so traumatizing words or visual that we've got. And one thing I would also like to mention when dealing with grief, for me, some people will tell you, move on. And that makes me almost, it doesn't resonate in me, in the sense that we don't want to move. I don't want to move on. I want to move forward. I'll take that back with me. I'll transcend that back and I'll move forward. And for me, moving on, that cannot happen. This is not the way. It's a way of flying, you say, away from the situation, running away from the situation. I cannot do it didn't happen. It happened. And because if that didn't happen, the beautiful life I had before didn't happen, right? So everything has to happen. Everything has to be there, makes me me. The pain it generates, it will be there and welcome, not for the pain, but for the question that it asks me, for the way it asks me to move forward, to search for answer, to search for things to progress. And I cannot move on. That's who I am today. I'm that, plus the previous, plus anything that came out of that trauma. It can be a loss of work as well, etc. So that was, that's my story. What I felt like sharing about dealing with loss.
Thank you. It's all part of our journey of life. That's it, isn't it? Absolutely.
It is.
And it's a beautiful thing. Everything, moving forward. So can I ask May, who'd been like to be next? Is Anna or Kate or anyone? Kate.
Okay.
Come to me, Kate.
Kate. Okay. So when I was listening to Marie and her story, I think it brought back to me losses that I've had in my life. And I think the biggest feeling that I get when somebody or one of my animals dies or something is, for me, the loss is guilt. I get a lot of guilt. And I did used to, I would say, because I worked a lot on this with myself in my training and everything else. And I think for me, it was reframing that guilt into something that was more about love, because I guess what I wanted to do is, like, I felt I had to save everybody and that I should have done more, or I should have eased their suffering, or should have been there, or whatever it was. There's always a should in there that was causing me suffering. And I was able to reframe that by I don't know where I heard it. Somebody once said that, if we don't, in order to die, we have to live. And so there is a whole life there. And no matter how long you live, how short or long it is, there is still life. And for you to grieve, then you have to have loved something that lived. And so that you can't have death without life. You can't have grief without love. And it's, where do you focus? Focus on the life, not the death. Focus on the love, not the grief. And I know, and these things obviously take time. You have to work through them. You have to sit with them and allow those feelings to surface, and sit with them and move through them, and or allow them to move through you, rather than suppressing them. You know, a lot of our suffering is by suppressing feelings and not wanting to feel them because they're so painful, and pushing them away instead of just, okay, sitting with it. And I found that by forgiving myself for not being this superhero and saving people's lives, which I couldn't do anyway, because how can you save someone's life? If it's their time, that's it. And you just forgive yourself for anything you think you should have done, because there's a great analogy where there was a guy who was really sad because he couldn't make it to his mother's sort of hospital bed as she was dying, and he lived with this grief and guilt and beat himself up for a long time. And somebody said to him, well, if I took a picture of you right now, just took a photograph of you where you're sitting there on the chair, and you look at that photograph, could you have been anywhere else? We said, yeah, I could have been sat in my car, I could have been over there. Well, no, but could you? The photograph's been taken. You could only have been where you were. And that's the case of, if wishing you'd been somewhere else, being there for somebody or whatever, you were where you were, and that is it. And you were doing what you were doing, and that was it. It was just how life was, and life gave you this moment to be there, and that was it. So beating yourself up for not being somewhere else in the photograph, you can't, because you just are where you are. And that reframed it for him. It was a good way for him to think about it. And he was able in that moment just to release the fact that he wasn't somewhere where he wasn't, because he just wasn't. Nice. And I think for me, it's been more about allowing myself to let go of the fact I've got to save everybody, because one thing that's going to happen is we're all going to die, all of us. And we may or may not be at the place we want to be and with the people we want to be with, but it's just going to happen. And focusing on the love and the good times and all those things, like saying, use some modalities to play around with that, and also allowing yourself just to be with that grief, because you can't have grief without love. So focus on that, the love that's inside you that's making you feel the grief. And a lovely analogy that I heard about was, imagine you're somewhere where you feel really warm and comfortable, and you're around a campfire. So for me, it's on a beach, because I love being by the sea. So I've got this beautiful campfire, it's night, I'm sat there, and there are logs or stones, probably logs sat around, and I'm sat there on there. And then one by one, walking up from the sound of the sea, and just walking up the beach are people that I've lost, or animals I've lost. And they're walking up one by one, and they come and sit around the campfire with me. And I'm sat there just basking in this warmth and this love. And then there's nothing being said. We're just there in the mutual love for each other and just sharing our love. And for me, that's just a wonderful way of celebrating that feeling. And so it's quite emotional for me.
That's beautiful.
Have I got anything else to say? I think that's it for now, but I might
come. Oh, I love that. That beach. Oh, that beach. That's a beautiful beach. Something about being by the sea, isn't there? And the sound of the waves and all of that. It's very magical. It's beautiful. Thank you, Kate. Thanks for that. Perfect. So maybe we can go to Susanna. And also, I just wanted to ask as well, just to throw it out there as well, that a lot of people are experiencing at this time, if their loved ones are going into hospitals and they can't be with them for their last days. And I think that's a very, very painful thing to have to live through. Please, university, it would never happen, but it's happening. It's actually happening to a lot of people. So how do you deal with those feelings of I suppose it is guilt, but also that pain that you can't be with the people that you love the most in those last few days or weeks or whatever it may be. So Susanna, can I come to you, darling?
All these questions and hearing you again, I have plenty of ideas. But the first comment I'd like to make, listening to you girls talking about this, just made me realize over and over again this beauty that we can see in humans searching for answers, searching for tools. It is beautiful, especially what Helene did, and it touches me as well, because I've had it. You know, we can experience loss at the beginning of our lives. We can experience loss towards like in more recent times, but some people deal with loss and live with loss for a long, long time. So it's very touching to see what beauty, what art people can create out of pain, out of suffering. And this is, I think, where is the most magical part of human existence. So that's my first comment. It's beautiful. What you're doing, Helene, it's beautiful. It's art. Working with yourself when times are tough, I think, is one of the most beautiful things somebody can do individually and collectively. But then what I wanted to say also was that in this process, when we're dealing with death, let's say, because we talked about death, loss can happen at many levels, right? We can lose a relationship, we can lose all kinds of other things. But since we talked about death, I think the pain mainly comes from the main idea that death is something bad. That's another conversation, right? Because we all start from the presupposition that death is an end, death is something that is bad and should be not avoided but feared. So if we work on that particular level, that can be perceived in a totally different way. And there are civilizations that did that, and there are disciplines that are dealing with death differently. In our society, I think we are kind of underestimating or fearing death a lot. There's no ceremonial attitude towards death. We're not prepared for that. We are not seeing it as part of life. We're seeing it as something that we should push away as far as we can, and best that we can. But that's another conversation, but that's a thought I wanted to share with you, to ask and launch this question to all of you now, and to all of you listening. What is death? You know, can we reframe that? You know, can we go and give another picture to that? And that reminds me of a conversation, a session I had with one client who had lost somebody. I see actually a lot of people dealing with loss, and it's amazing how NLP helps. Listening to your stories, it's another confirmation. And this lady, I asked her, okay, so, because this was a very dark feeling she was experiencing inside. And I said, do you have a picture for that? And she told me it's just like a black stroke of black paint. And I said, okay, can we try to change and add something to that picture so we make it we'll make it look different, feel different. And all of a sudden, by doing these exercises, she finally became a fountain. And then after it was like the rock, a black rock of a fountain, right? And then that image transformed into a dolphin, and she loved dolphins. So it was the black stroke of color, or whatever, that shape, became a dolphin swimming in the sea. And that helped her a lot to deal with that particular emotion. She felt a relief right away, because instead of being something dark, death, and it's life continuing, life flowing, it's the sea, it's the life of the dolphin, and so on. So that was a very interesting experience that I had with many cases, especially reframing death. I like playing with that, but maybe we have another conversation on that particularly. But what I wanted initially to talk about loss and grief, of course, from the Ayurvedic perspective, is that when we experience intense negative emotions such as grief and loss, our doshas, that means the elements in the body, get disturbed. And while we are focusing on dealing with the emotion, which is very strong, we always forget the body. All right. So in my practice here at my center, when I receive people for a few days retreat, if I want to reduce the emotion, because that's the problem, right? It's very intense and very excruciating pain, right, that we're dealing with. I work with the body. And when the person suffers from some physical disease, then I work with the emotions. Because dealing with the emotions, sometimes it's very hard. The emotion is too strong. And people usually tempt, and it's normal, it's natural, we want to repress it. We don't want to feel that. That's the denial part. I don't want to let go. I don't want to feel better. I stick with that. And so what we want to do is to allow the body to release little by little. If we don't treat the body, the risk is that the body will suffer eventually diseases. And that could happen at the liver, at the kidneys and the lungs. These are the organs that are most affected because of grief and loss. So we have to take care of the body while we are soothing ourselves through all kind of mind procedures and techniques. It is important not to forget the body. And that's what I love about Ayurveda, because we're dealing with both, we're helping both. The body is suffering a lot and we forget about it completely when it happens.
That's really interesting. That's really interesting about that the grief is the kidneys and the lungs that was tied to that.
Yeah, it's because the grief, it's a more of a kapha, which is the mix of water and earth elements.
Yeah.
So everything that is related to the management of the water in the body is affected.
Wow.
Because they're the tears. Oh, and there's talking about tears. One last comment, and I'll let the others speak. When I experienced the loss of my father-in-law, it was a beautiful experience. It was about a year and a bit ago, February of last year. There was this huge wave of tears that came forth. And it felt so good to cry them. And for some reason, it felt like I was honoring his soul, his life, his experience. It's a process of purification, because whether we believe in afterlife or not, there is something that goes on. Through these tears that happened for about a couple of days, I felt that I was honoring everything that he was for me, everything that he's done for me. And I cried until, like, who said, I think, I don't remember who said it, I could see him smiling. I could hear him laughing.
Yeah.
And there is a great deal of influence we can have on the person who left when we cry those tears in the right way. It was that warmth of that tear, that feeling of relief. It was feeling good.
Yeah.
It was feeling good in a sense that I knew that that is a process of purification of his own heart, of his own soul, of his own life, that he is forgiven, released from those things that were holding him back or that disturbing him in his life in the past. So I saw the crying process as a forgiveness that I was offering to him.
That's beautiful.
So good. And then he showed up in the dreams, but that happens to me often. I always dream of them and I have communication with them, and that's my thing. And
That's great.
I'm grateful for that, because I keep contact with them all the time.
And I think as well, when you do sleep, I think that what we don't remember is we probably do have a lot more contact with our loved ones in the universe than we remember. So it's a beautiful thing. Thank you so much, Tsvetelina. That was fabulous as well. So Lena, can I come to you? Marcus, I'm leaving you to last because you're down there and I can see you right now. Oh, Lena, so welcome to our little world. So nice to see you. So please, could you add some stuff?
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here. I want, listening to everybody, it is amazing how much of experience we've learned and grown, and so much to share. I mean, going through so much transformation for every loss, or because we're on a topic of loss, the amount of growth.
Oh, it's frozen. Yeah. Lena, you've frozen. Lena, okay, you've frozen, so we're just going to let you come back. Maybe you need to sign out and then sign back in again. Oh, such a shame you've frozen, but please come back to us. Marcus, I'm going to go to you now because Lena's just stopped. Come back, Lena. Marcus, my darling.
Well, it's a pleasure to be jumping on the chat with you guys. I do want to just say this very quickly before I go into this loss thing. The last conversation I had with you guys, a thing came up about sleep, and I think it was Marie that recommended a book or something, and since then my sleep has been incredible, I have to say. So this group is like really helping us. You know, it's amazing to have this as part of our daily lives, really. So apologize I haven't been on as much, but I'm here now. So obviously getting on to the topic of today, and what you guys have said is incredible. Again, something that I'm going to take away from this myself, from what I've been listening to. So I've made some notes here. And one is, for me, I've lost a few people in my life. Fortunately, not too many people so far. So I feel very blessed in that. But two occasions, and one I'll briefly touch on and one I'll go more into depth on. But when I was 13, I lost my cousin who was 17 years old. And I believe that had a big impact on my life through the anxiety problems and stuff. And I actually gained a fear of death. So listening to you, Susanna, is like very interesting on that, and something I battled with massively. But that's another topic, and you know, we could probably chat about that some other time. But the person that affected me emotionally the most, losing them, was my granddad, because my real dad was never around. I never really had a dad, didn't have the best relationship with my stepdad, and I was the oldest of 6 children, but we all actually had different fathers. So we had many father figures, but none of them really played any real role into our life. But my granddad was like a father to all of us, and a very, very generous, loving guy. There's never a person I've ever met that didn't like my granddad at all. So that being said, when I lost my granddad, and it was quite suddenly, and it was a massive impact into my life, to the point, I coming back to what you said, Susanna, which was so interesting, and I made a note of this, of saying that that grief can affect the lungs, as one of the things you said. Because one thing I remember from that is I literally felt like the oxygen had been sucked out of my body, and I couldn't breathe. I remember lying in bed, and I physically couldn't breathe from the power of the emotion of realization that my granddad had gone. And that being said, coming back to what Marie said, is I kind of early on in the whole process of the grieving, because I kind of wasn't mentally where I am today when that happened either, but I must have been on this path, and understanding the process of going, well, I was 26 years old at the time, and I was like, well, I've had 26 years with my granddad, and some people don't get blessed with that amount of time. So I started to reframe without realizing that I was reframing. And I think I came to that point of thinking it's about moving forward rather than moving on. And I love that. I love what you said there, Marie. I love that, like moving forward rather than moving on. And I've never actually put that into words, but I guess that's what I was doing, and I'm going to use that in future, because I just think that's such an amazing way to put it. So that being said, you know, I think by its very nature that this is an NLP talk, I think over the years, and a little note I made here to kind of finish my thing of saying this is I think NLP, what it does, it's obviously what it is in its nature. It's programming. It's a reprogramming. And I think a lot of people say when we have loss, things get better in time. And I think that is very true by its nature, because I think in time, whether we understand it or not, we are reprogramming. So over time, we've reprogrammed a way around it, whichever way that is. Sometimes it's healthy, sometimes it's not so healthy. And I think with NLP, we speed up that process. We speed up that process of the reprogramming and put it into a healthier solution. And that brings back to the point of moving forward rather than moving on, and having a relationship with the fact of, yes, we do live, we do die, we do lose these people. And sometimes I think when we don't understand that, we selfishly make it about us rather than about the bigger picture. Because one thing that I will say, and leave it on this, is what happens, and I had this discussion with somebody not long ago who lost somebody close to them, and they was like, yeah, but I've lost this person in my life and I can't go on and all this. And I was like, well, the one fundamental thing to think about is, would that person want you to be in this state right now and continuing that? Because that in itself is making it about you rather than them so much. And it kind of put it into perspective to be like, yeah, actually, you know, anybody that we would lose would want us to live a happy, healthy, fulfilled life beyond them, if that makes sense. So I hope my little interlude has been helpful there today. So
that was lovely, Marcus. Thank you. So beautiful. So, Lena, I hope we got you back. Have we got you back, my darling?
I don't even know where you lost me, but I got frozen for a second.
Start again, because that's where we were at the beginning.
Yeah,
It's a good place to start.
apologies. lost connection.
Oh, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yes.
Yeah, we can see you and we can hear you. We're good. Lena, talk to me. Talk to me.
I wanted to say it's privileged to be here. It's beautiful to listen to everybody, and the stories are so fulfilling and fruitful and way forward for a lot of people that will probably listen to our chat later, that we can cover so much of our experiences that may be taken forward. With NLP for me has become such a magical tool. And I see for everyone as well. I mean, the growth in all of you, with your experiences and the way it can be shared, the things we've learned that we can share with so many people and it can be paid forward and paid forward and paid forward is magnificent. It's amazing. I love how it's not seamless, because it is a lot of it's a lot of work, but it's almost like a magic wand that you can rewire the nervous system with just a different perspective. When we close our eyes and we project a story, if that's a horror story, our bodies don't know that we projected it ourselves. We have a memory of that horror that we've just put ourselves in, literally. And when you live something for real, to be able to imagine something better while you are physically in, well, the perception that you are right now, you are living through those hard times, to be able to pull yourself, like what the way Helene has just explained, and Susanna, to be able to, or Marcus, to be able to pull yourself out of it, to have the perception. I guess that's why we are in the line of work that we are, to help people support, because we are able to be, like Eckhart Tolle says, the silent watcher, to be able to stalk yourself to such an extent that you can notice a pattern and disrupt it for a better possible pattern. And change and death are something that is perceived to be equal by humans. That is as humans, when we speak of death or imagine death and change, it is the same thing. It is such a transformation that you have no perception of what is possible when you're in it. If when somebody's next to you, maybe they can see a different perception, something that is not in your darkness. That's where a practitioner is so helpful, because to pull you out of your shadow and literally show you a bit of light, even if it's a glimpse of light, it is enough to crack that open. Even if the thought of a possibility of something good after the shift and transformation, and this is the words that I choose to use for death, because they're all one and the same thing. For something to shift and to transform and to change, it has died. It is no longer. It is something else now. They talk about now, we are here now. So for something to have shifted and transformed and changed, it is something else right now. The pain is from what we had and what we still want to have, but it is no longer. It is quite a heavy starting point to grasp this, but when you're in the midst of change and experiencing loss, it is a good place to start from now, where you're right now. What do you have right now? My most recent personal experience, which was losing my pet, and pet is like your child and you've known this little thing since it fitted in the palm of your hand. And I was there for the whole process. She was old. We expected this. We knew she had a good life. I made a point, and this is the consciousness where talking about guilt, like you can't save people, you can't save animals, you can't be the savior. But when you can be there, and know that you were there. Remember you were there because you were there. When you're not, you are not. And I made a point of spending time with her consciously every single day, or noticing her, and I was lucky enough, I was privileged enough with my pet to have that time, because she was with us for 18 years.
Wonderful.
Yes, and time was coming. It was a little Jack Russell, so it was coming. And I remember the day, and yet it was coming, yet we never prepared. You can't, to be prepared, how? No. You never prepared for that. And the day I had to take her to the hospital, where it was kind of obvious, but you're still in denial, because we like to be hopeful. Since hope dies last, you keep that hope. It's a good thing. It keeps us going. I had to take her to the hospital. The phone call did come an hour later. I had to make the decision to do the right thing. Sometimes I wish we could do that with people. It's not legal yet to do the right thing. And you have to make that decision. I was there. I remember those moments, so cherish them. I cherish them because I was there for her last breath. I held her. A lot of people afterwards were like, that's trauma. Why would you do such trauma to yourself? But I felt privileged to be trusted with that life. And that's how we are when we interact with each other. Like, I am privileged to spend this hour with you all virtually. It is a privilege. I find we have what we have. To be able to allow yourself the gap where you can look back in time after you have lost, and say, but I was there when I could. Like Kate mentioned that picture. Were you in the? Yes, I was in the picture. I was there. Could I have been anywhere else? Could I have done more? Couple of scenarios. No, I couldn't have. I was there. That's what I had to offer. That's where our lives touched. And that's how, and absolutely loved the way Marie explained, how do I move forward? What is forward? What does forward mean? Where do I go? How do I embrace that change and make the best of it?
That was lovely.
With what I've had.
Thank you so much, Lena. That was beautiful. That was lovely. So, but if you can't be there in those last days, this is a very important question to me, and I want somebody to answer this as well. If you can't be there physically because of obviously the virus that's going on, and we are not allowed to be there, and the times that our loved ones are, go ahead, Lena, go on. If you can't be there.
And on that topic, on your question, if you cannot be there, the ideal scenario is to be of support of the ones you love, or to be supported by the ones you love, and not to be alone, to be able to have your basic needs met, or to be able to meet, and that is human nature, to be able to meet the person that you love, their basic needs, and give them, all of you, just be there to help. If you cannot be there, how, for example, we're talking about the virus. We talk about the virus. The virus was in China. That virus is now everywhere. It traveled. It moved? It moved with this or that. That's how connected we are. If you cannot physically present, physically be somewhere, you can be there in so many ways that can be of support of presence that is different. You cannot help it right now. It's impossible to catch a flight. If you have a person that you love and that person is in distress over there somewhere far away from you, if that distance before was, for me, for example, that distance would be 24 hours of airplane flight, which is comforting to know that you can be by your family in the next 24 hours. A lot of people do not have that right now. You haven't got those 24 hours because you're housebound. You are exactly where you are. Energetically, we are all connected. The butterfly effect, and that is science. When a butterfly moves on one side of the universe, the waves are felt somewhere else. It creates a wave. If you put the amount of energy you give out, and that is also science, that's not, it is the amount of energy you give out. It's exactly the same amount that's felt. What we suffer from is not, it is not what we can do, because what we do is received. We don't receive the recognition of knowing or the response from the other side. Yes, okay, I feel better because you were there. This is what that, and it's again, when we talk about the loss, that is what is different from being somewhere physically present and being somewhere where you can be and do the best you can. When somebody's suffering, you do not send them your message of guilt and sorrow. You send them in your thoughts, you think good of them. Be there in the ways you can. If you can be there in a phone call, be. If you cannot, in your thoughts.
Lovely, thank you, Lena. I'm going to just quickly go to Kate again.
I have something here.
Sorry, yeah.
Because I was thinking of something that I've been doing with my dad. Apart from the 2 calls a day on Skype, because I wanted him to be protected. Their residence is not touched, thank God, by the virus yet. So I wanted to keep it that way. So what I do, you remember probably the yes state, we did one of the previous conversations, right? So what I do, I go into my now, the yes state, I get a yes answer from the body. And then I ask to connect to the source of energy, and everybody can connect to their own source, you know, whatever you believe in, whatever you can visualize. So I'm asking to my body to connect, my neurology to connect to that source. And then I let it flow through, and I get a yes when it's done. And then I ask my neurology to connect to my dad's neurology. And I can see him. Yeah, I can see his face. I don't have to imagine him good or bad, but that could be done too. You can imagine them the best shape, the best form, the best energy, smiling, laughing, happy, fulfilled. And then I allow this energy. I just ask my neurology, my unconscious mind, can you please connect to my dad's neurology and allow this energy that I've been connected to flow through us and give him exactly what he needs. And I allow him to be in the freedom of using that energy the way he wants. Because you see, that is also a choice at the sun level. Now it's the virus, but normally it's a sort of a choice. Souls are living when they're ready, or they want, most of the time, sometimes not. But you have to allow that person to use the energy the way they want, right? So that's love, no? Letting go, letting them choose, making that choice.
Nice.
And that's part of the healing process as well, right? So that's what I do. I go in the now state, and I check the yes in my body. I connect to the source. I connect to my father's neurology, and then I allow the energy to flow. And then I'm asking my unconscious mind, give me a yes when what was needed to be done is done, when the process is finished. So I allow that to be done through me. I don't want to impose anything on him, but I'm just sending that wave of energy. And I'm pretty sure that he receives it. But anyway, I feel so much better after that.
Energy is energy, whatever way you look at it. Thank you, Susanna. Kate, did you want to add anything to as well, or are you good?
Well, I would do something similar to what Susanna just said. So it's very similar things in that visualizing the other, feeling, going into my feelings. So if I'm feeling guilt or worry or stress, whatever it is, I'd go into that feeling and name that feeling for myself and allow that feeling just to be, and then say, okay, well, what is the opposite of that feeling, and where is that? And I would find out where that is in my body, and then I would say, okay, well then let that feeling now just take the place of this other feeling, and then I would send that, when that other feeling is gone and I've just got this beautiful love or warmth or whatever it is, this healing feeling, whatever it is that I needed to replace that feeling, the uncomfortable feeling that I had, the unpleasant feeling, and then I would send that feeling to the other person. And just, it's almost like I would expand the feeling inside of me so that it's like a big bubble that then it encompasses me, and then I just expand it out, and I would expand it further. So I take the whole house and all my loved ones in the house, and then it goes further to the whole of the village, and then I would just keep expanding it out until it's just covering the whole world, including this person I'm sending it to, but to everybody. And here's my cat.
Oh, I love it.
And so I would just expand it out and look out, and take it out just as far as I could, so that the whole of, so I'm sort of floating above the world, and I'm just seeing that feeling that feeling just spreading around everything and touching everything, you know, not just the people, but the animals, the plants, everything. So it gets that energy and that connection, because I believe that energy that we have inside of us is connected to everything, and it is unlimited. And so we've always got it, and we can keep giving it out and not losing, not depleting ourselves in any way at the same time. And so that's really pretty much what I would do.
I love that, Kate. And I love your cat.
You have a kitty there on you.
Here's your cat.
But not woken up.
And I love how resourceful we are.
Yeah, we are.
But can I ask one question, Danielle, and I launch it to you to launch it to everybody, and let's reflect on that, all of us now and all of those listening. What is loss?
Yeah. Yeah, what is loss?
We talk about this since an hour ago.
We have.
What's loss? I mean, the loss, isn't it the feeling that we possess something, that we own something, that we had it and we no longer have it?
I think it's also, it's something like we needed, or we thought we wanted, or we dreamed of, and then it didn't actually happen. And so there's that gap. And that's where then we have this gap in between something. And then I guess that's what grief is, when we didn't get what we wanted, or dreamed we could have had, or wanted to keep for longer, or whatever it was. Like you say, do you own this person that you've lost, or this thing, like the project you've lost, or this money you've lost, or whatever it is? Did you really ever own it anyway? Was it ever yours? And is it just, you know, it was just there, it was flowing through you for a while, and now it's no longer flowing through you in that same way, but it's changed. It's still there, it's still a part of you, but it's just changed, it's moved, and then we tend to grieve that change of state.
That's a brilliant question.
Yeah. I think also, like, because obviously the one thing we go to a lot is obviously people we've lost, loved ones through death and stuff like that. But you know, you just hit something there. I think a lot of us are going through now, and I know me and Danielle share this same thing. You know, we've lost a lot of gigs, therefore we're losing a lot of financial gain and stuff like that. But you know, me and my wife was having this conversation whilst walking the dogs yesterday, and was like, you know, there's such beauty in all of this, and it's only when we look for it we can see that. So you know, a lot of my friends now are like, you're loving this lockdown, aren't you? And I'm like, you know what, we're just making the most of it like we would with anything else. So yes, we're losing money, yes, we're not doing the shows that we love, but you know, had we have been doing that, I wouldn't have met you guys, I wouldn't be doing this, and you know, we wouldn't be spending all this time together and finding ourselves even more spiritually and growing and all of those things. You know, the list goes on. So you know, the loss can be many different things, but we can recreate and reform, because as they say, we are all that ever was, ever is, and ever will be. Therefore, it's a tension of energy, and that energy is where we decide to put it.
Wow!
Woo-hoo.
I would also add something here. I think loss maybe is one way to look at it. Loss, isn't it the fact that we lose a direct link and control in this reality with something? Because at the end of the day, if I lose my home, I lose the physical contact with the environment being my home, my husband, my dog, my cat, whatsoever. But it is in this reality. And it's the fact that we can no longer interact as we have been used to do. I think this is what it is in essence, but it makes bounce on something else. And I just like maybe, I don't know if in time it allows me to do that, a very short anecdote, because I think loss also sends us back to the fact that, as one was mentioning earlier, unless we've lived, there's no death and loss. Unless we've had, there's no loss. And that's just a true polarity, and that's the way it is in any case. And it brings me back to a comment that really sits into my heart. When I first arrived in South Africa, in 2003, and it's a very short anecdote, but I'll transpose that to loss and love. One of my kids, there was not many expatriates arriving in the school where my children were, sorry. And my child wanted to get friendly with, so many people, and we were used to travel from country to country, so a new connection was something easy. And the one time a mum comes to me at the school and says, can I speak to you, Mari, because I'm going to be very blunt and transparent. You guys are probably there in this country for 3 years. My daughter is so attached to your daughter, and I don't think it's really fair. And I'm taken back thinking, what on earth? But anyway, and she was genuinely concerned and said, you guys going to go. She's going to be sad. I'm going to have to deal with the pain of the loss. And I go home and I thought, wow, that was, and again, I've got the goose telling you that. So anyway, we discussed that at the dinner table in the evening, and I threw that conversation at the dinner table, and the kids are around. And it was one of the most magical conversations we had, because my son started saying, well, I suppose that's fair, Mom, because then they'll be sad. And he allowed me to bounce at that time on that one thing. I said to them, guys, does it mean you don't get a dog because you know the dog's going to go? You don't get in love because somehow it will end up one way or another, death or divorce, but it will end up. You don't want to be there because, so what is it? It's all about the journey. It's all about how special do you make it between point A and point B. And one, the mere fact you accept there's a point B, which is end of, that enable you to enjoy what you've got in the journey, but also able to give it your best. And that helps you to deal with loss for a start. You get into a relation knowing there's going to end. But it's about the energy, the love, and the beauty of the story that you put in between.
That's beautiful.
Hoping the loss comes as late as possible. That's my perception.
Really, thank you. And I'm going to wrap things up now, unless anyone else has got anything to say, because what I'd like to say, just going back to that energy thing, I mean, there's so much I want to say. I wanted to run through a submodalities technique so that people on the other side could watch it, but maybe we can do that another time. That'll be okay. But I'm going to wrap things up. So when my granddad died, just going back to this energy, I felt a lot of anger, and my grief comes out as anger. So every people's griefs come out as different things. And I was only young. I think I was probably about 16 or 17 years old. I remember going down to the graveyard because they were getting buried. And it was a very cold, freezing cold day. It was grey and it was just pouring with rain, and everyone was just like, it was really really repressed day. And it was a Jewish ceremony because, as I say, I'm a spiritualist and I'm very much into spiritualism, but my family and I was born into Judaism. And so it's quite, funerals with Judaism are there's nothing there. It's very grey. It's just a room, men on one side, women on the other side, and there's no love felt. There's no flowers. There's no, I mean, it's totally the opposite to who I am, but that's the tradition and that's what it is. So I just remember everything I was surrounded by, I didn't like, and the anger was there from the loss and the rain and the grey, and everything was just awful for me. So I remember I was very separate from the party. We walk out to the grave to bury my granddad, and I'm standing quite away from everyone because I'm just angry. And all of a sudden, I said, Grandpa, I said, I love you so much. And just give me a sign. I was just praying up to my granddad. And as the first lot of dirt, because the dirt gets thrown on with the shovel, the whole sky, bright blue, and the sun came out. And I am not joking you, right? And I stood there and I just went, I was in absolute shock. And I just thought, that is the biggest sign. And no one else knew what I'd asked. Everyone else was in there, and everyone just noticed it, obviously, because it was just so bright and just the sun came out. And I felt that as a little message for me. but it's the little things that count. It's the little things that are the big things, the little things that you notice as you go along. If you can't be with them, the energy, they can give you that in whatever method it is. So just don't ever think, just because you're not there, it's a loss in one level, but you're gaining that a different level completely. So just be open and aware and see the little magic around you, because it will always be there when you notice it. So that's how I'd like to just wrap things up. And I want to say thank you again to everyone. And I hope anyone watching this has got a little bit of perspective on the situation. Yes, it's tough, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There is a sun at the end of the clouds and the rain. Okay, guys, and you will move forward. You will move forward. So we're all here for you. If anyone needs us, you contact us. All the links are on the pages. And God bless you all. And I will see you on the next one. Guys, I'm going to press stop recording. Stay there. Hold on. Let me just go. I've got to stop recording.